Hi there, and welcome to today's session on remarketing optimization. My name is Sarah, and I currently work as a display product specialist here in Google Dublin. So a big welcome to all of you that managed to make it to the Hangout today. Feel free to post questions. However, these won't be answered until after the Hangout, so it'll give me time to go through them all. So as I said, today I'm going to take you through some best practices for your remarketing campaigns and ultimately how to optimize campaign performance and expand beyond remarketing. Before I jump into the best practices, let me do a quick recap on remarketing and why advertisers use it. So if we look at the stats on this slide, it gives us great reasons to create a remarketing strategy. Why? Because 96% of us leave a website without converting, 70% of us abandon shopping carts, and nearly 50% of us visit 2 to 4 sites before making a purchase. Just think about your own typical purchase journey and how similar this is. You know, we don't just visit the first website generally and purchase what we see. We leave, we go to review websites, price comparison websites, and then we make a decision. So remarketing allows us to re-engage with past visitors as they're browsing on the web. So we know that if they visited and interacted with your website, they're expressing an interest in your brand and offerings. As a reminder, remarketing works across all devices and platforms, so you can create a strategy for YouTube, the GDN, even search and shopping with RLSA. So if we look at this slide, we have the consumer purchase journey. So remarketing isn't just for the action phase. We can bring it all the way from consideration through to loyalty. For example, to promote your products at the consideration phase, static remarketing is really the perfect solution here to target all website visitors and product site visitors, as these are the more generic audience lists where it may make sense to have more of a branding style creative with specific USPs, such as, I suppose, free delivery. Moving through to the action, our strategy needs to be a lot more specific and personalized. So here is where dynamic remarketing really comes in. You would use dynamic remarketing specifically for the, I suppose, product page views, and most importantly, the shopping cart abandoners. You can even build upon through to the loyalty stage with remarketing. So think of this where you could target previous buyers to promote a loyalty scheme or newsletter sign up to receive 10% off. So on this here slide, we got some of our best practices when it comes to remarketing. This covers both static and dynamic. All of these steps are also applicable to all verticals and not just retail. So if we look, first, the step is all about, I suppose, the technical part and ensuring the website is tagged properly. Second step, do you really target the right audience, or is your approach too granular that you can't use the data? Then it's about how to use automated bidding, how to set up the campaign with optimal settings, and lastly, we're talking about audience. So ultimately, feeding the remarketing list from different channels, for example, using upper funnel campaigns, branding campaigns, etc. And this is all to grow your audience. And then in the end, you want to convert it with dynamic remarketing. First step. So this is the more techie part, and I know it may scare a lot of you, but we do have some great tools available to make your life easier. Okay, so again, it's essential to get this part right, because then all the other parts will fall into place. So tags essentially collect insights about how someone's interacted with your website, and you use these insights to build your marketing list. First and foremost, ensure the entire website is tagged, not just a subset of pages. You would be surprised to hear that this is a common problem with tagging. So we have a lot of not a lot of advertisers, but some advertisers will only partially tag their websites. So what does this mean? It means that they're missing site visitors from their remarketing list. It also means that you may not be able to capture actions of interest in the site. Keep in mind, you do only need one remarketing tag for the entire domain, and don't forget about your mobile site. This is so important. If it's not tagged, then you're not going to be getting any mobile traffic from your remarketing list, so it's going to be hard to reach a 360 audience. We have 3 different tags that we can use for remarketing. So as you can see here, we've got the Google Analytics tag and the AdWords tag. Remember, Google Analytics is very easy to implement, and you can use a lot of additional data that you get from your GA account through remarketing. Now, I know we've heard, and I get a lot of complaints all the time, that updating tags and websites is time consuming and a bit of a pain, to be honest. So to make your life easier and to save time, we do recommend you use a container tag and then dropping in your remarketing tag from there. So a container tag is a master tag that your webmaster can add to your site just the once, and then from there you manage your tags easily from your container tag. Google Tag Manager, this is our offering, lets you manage your container tag and all the other tags from the Google Tag Manager interface. So it's sort of a one-step shop for all tags, whether it's not just Google tags, but any other tags that you use in your website. So I suppose in a nutshell, that's the technical part. Just make sure that you entire every single page on the website. You don't want to miss any pages. And then from there, it's so much more easier to start creating your remarketing lists. So while setting up your tags, you want to think about audience segmentation. So I've learned that the best segmentation strategy for performance is actually not a hugely complicated one. That may sound counterintuitive since a lot of advertisers and agencies are used to segment pretty granularly, but that's not where we see perform the best. Think of your own current setup, okay? So how have you actually set it up? Is it really complicated and really granular with a lot of fancy lists? Again, let's strip that back and keep it simple. A core reason for keeping it simple is that Conversion Optimizer, which I'll talk about next, helps with that process. So after tagging your entire site, you want to target all site visitors. I know a lot of you are used to targeting only, let's say, the shopping cart abandoners or the product page viewers, but that's not necessarily always the best practice. And we see what works best, I suppose, is to target all of these different segments. So as you can see on this slide, there's a lot of, I suppose, it mirrors the purchase funnel. We go from homepage viewers straight through to cart abandoners and past converters. A lot of you may say, my homepage viewers don't perform as well as, for example, cart abandoners. But again, I'm going to say the solution for that is Conversion Optimizer. Why? Because our automated bidding algorithm will optimize all of these segments towards the performance that you're looking for. Another mistake is that some advertisers forget to target past converters. So while many say that this segment actually performs the best, a lot of you may think that this is counterintuitive because, right, they've already bought from you. Why would they be interested in buying again? But it's exactly that fact that they're familiar with your brand, perhaps, your site and the sales process. So they're going to be more likely to buy again if it's easier and if it was a good experience. And the past converter segment actually does drive best performance for a lot of advertisers. Finally, before I move off this slide, I want to take a quick comment on static remarketing. So if you're not going to run dynamic ads, you'll probably want to break out your segmentation into different product categories and tailor your ads to those segments with static remarketing. Why? Because then it means that your ads and your creatives are a lot more tailored to where the advertiser has been or to where the user has been on the site. Okay, so I've mentioned Conversion Optimizer a few times. It's important to note that, when we call Conversion Optimizer in the AdWords front end, it's sometimes, I suppose, a lot of different tools in the back end. And remarketing has its own version that isn't entirely the same as Conversion Optimizer for search or other targeting forms. Where it differs is that Conversion Optimizer with remarketing, I suppose it really is a real-time audience bidding algorithm, if you want to think of it like that. Why? Because it optimizes all of your remarketing campaigns based on the many audience insights and signals that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so a couple of these would be when did the user visit your site last? How often have they visited your site? What are their interests, their age, where are they located, and the list goes on. There's hundreds of signals. If we take the first one that I mentioned there, when did the user visit your site last? Okay, this is recency of a site visit. So I'm going to give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, I was looking to book a trip to Strasbourg for the Christmas markets, and I was looking at various websites for the best flights. So I ended up on a particular airline site, I'm not going to name names, and I found the best deal. But however, I did get distracted because I also had to make some business travel arrangements in the same session. So what I did, I had the tickets in the cart, but I ended up abandoning that process and I didn't purchase them there and then. So what should you do, I suppose, in terms of your strategy as an advertiser? This here is a key opportunity for the airline to re-engage with me because I just abandoned their site mid-process and I didn't finish. So if you think about it, just after I left that cart, that's when I'm most valuable to an advertiser, probably more so than 2 weeks down the line or 3 weeks down the line. Okay, so that's when that airline or any particular advertiser needs to make sure that their remarketing strategy kicks into place straight away. And the conversion optimizer actually knows it, so it will bid more aggressively to close that sale because it has seen the recency of my visit was so, let's say, a couple of minutes ago, a couple of hours ago, so it's going to bid more aggressively. And I think if you had to do that manually, that would be very hard, if not even impossible. Okay, so another couple of notes on conversion optimizer, and I am spending a lot more time in this because it works so well with remarketing and dynamic remarketing. Okay, so if it's one thing that you do take away from today, look at your campaign performance, okay? Because I will only recommend conversion optimizer on remarketing campaigns if they've had 30 conversions in the last 30 days, okay? So minimum really of 30 conversions if you want the best performance. And don't forget the bidding strategies are set in the campaign level, but if you do want to differ per ad group, let's say you've got a couple of remarketing ad groups in the one campaign, but when you look, you know, ad group number 1 only has 5 conversions, whereas ad group number 2 has 40 plus conversions. It's actually better if you only apply the conversion optimizer on the ad group with the optimal conversions, because that ad group with the 5 conversions, it ultimately is going to ignore it. So you can still leave it on eCPC. And how do you do that? You set up flexible bid strategies in the shared library. Okay, remember that. So then you can tailor per ad group. And a little word of warning, if you are setting up a new remarketing or dynamic remarketing campaign, always use enhanced CPC from the beginning, okay? Because you don't need any conversion data. Once you get one conversion, the algorithm and the auction, it kicks into place, and then as it builds up, you can switch to conversion optimizer. Okay, so hopefully that was a few handy tips for you all. Next, now this should be, to me, it's basics and it's common sense, but you will be surprised a lot of advertisers overlook this. So if we think about the conversion optimizer algorithm, it's working with data, but where's the data coming from? So you know it's coming from your lists, but it's also your ad sizes and ad formats. So if you do really want 100% possibility of good performance, you should ensure all ad sizes, and most importantly text ads or dynamic text ads. Now, you may not know this, but 1 in every 3 ads on the GDN are text ads. And for those of you that are unaware, we still have a lot of placements within the GDN that do not accept any image ads. So if you're only running on image ads, you lose users that are on placements that only accept text ads. So that you're losing out ultimately on around 30% of inventory. Okay, so that's massive. So if you just want to increase your volume straight away, opt into text ads, create your text ads. Again, one thing I hear a lot and see a lot of advertisers do, they split out image and text ads into different ad groups, whereas this can sometimes harm your performance because conversion optimizer is data driven. So if you split data up, again, what could happen is you've got one ad group with little to no conversions and another ad group with, let's say, 40, 50 plus conversions. So really, conversion optimizer is going to only look at the ad group with the most conversions and kind of ignore the other ad groups. So ultimately ignore the text ads and not properly optimize. Okay, so if you do merge your text and your image ads into one ad group, conversion optimizer will decide for every single auction which kind of ad format is optimal to show the user. Okay, so again, that's manual optimization that you couldn't really do. So text ads, display ads, and then all ad sizes. And don't forget mobile ad sizes as well. Very important. Dynamic remarketing. So this is a no-brainer for a lot of agencies and a lot of advertisers. where it's possible, we want to see everyone opted into dynamic remarketing. Why? Because we see that your conversion rates double and the CPA is lowered by 60% versus static remarketing, which is pretty impressive performance. So again, there's a little bit more work, as you know, to dynamic remarketing because you have to create a business data feed. So ultimately, key point here is dynamic remarketing isn't just available for retail, it's available for a lot of other verticals, whether that's your travel clients, your real estate clients, your universities, etc. Okay, you can make a business data feed for pretty much anything that warrants it. Now, so at this point you may be thinking, hold on a minute, I've just created one list segment in one ad group and one ad that should represent thousands of my products. So how do I manage different KPIs for different categories? I'm getting much more revenue from my furniture inventory than my clothing section. How can I set different CPAs? That's a great question. And if you were to sit down and figure out what CPA you would set for thousands of products, it would be pretty much a nightmare. So the answer is you won't need to, okay? All you have to do is let us know the value of your shopping carts and we can start optimizing for value rather than conversion volume alone. So let me reiterate, this works for travel, local deal, real estate, education. It's not just restricted to e-commerce advertisers, but it works for all of remarketing. So as you can see in the slide, it doesn't just improve the workflow, but we have seen where advertisers using target return on ad spend, they've seen a 40% lift in return on ad spend within the same conversion volume. Okay, now I must say a word of warning with return on ad spend. Like Conversion Optimizer, there is a minimum conversion recommendation. For ROAS, or return on ad spend, to kick in, you must have a minimum of 50 conversions in 30 days. However, I would always suggest at least 90 plus conversions. That's far more optimal to begin with, probably because you've got more historical conversion data to run on and it's going to yield a better performance. Okay, so gradually, if you do pull in conversion values into your conversion information, then if you have enough conversions, the next step is return on ad spend after Conversion Optimizer. So this should be a no-brainer for a lot of agencies and advertisers. So language restrictions, okay, these aren't that necessary because compared to, let's say, regular display targeting, a user who visits your website usually understands perhaps your business model, you know, they're interested in buying, and they generally understand the website language if they're browsing around. Therefore, in terms of settings, so when you're setting up your campaign or when you're optimizing, if you know someone's been to your website, perhaps they've placed a couple of items in the basket, then it shouldn't really matter what language they speak or what country they're in. The only exception here, I suppose, in terms of the country, is if there is delivery restrictions per country. Okay, because then, you know, you don't want to be, if you don't ship to a certain country, then ultimately it may not be best for you guys to target it. However, you do need to think, for example, let's say I was on a business trip to London 2 weeks ago and it was my brother's birthday the exact same day. So I had started to do my gift research then while I was in London, but then obviously then I come home. So if you were an advertiser, you wouldn't continue to target me because then I'm back. Another one, and again, this may sound quite straightforward, but placement exclusions. These don't always make sense because if you think about it, with remarketing, we're doing audience targeting. So we're targeting that user, that person. So for example, if the user has been to your website and they've already showed interest, it shouldn't really matter what site they're on as they move along, as long as you know that they've already expressed interest, a purchase intent as well. You know, of course, you can consider excluding certain placements that you absolutely would not want your brand to show up on, or with this, you could use brand safety filters. Okay, so hopefully that there is pretty self-explanatory. You know, in a nutshell, language restrictions at a minimum should be removed. So we should be targeting all languages. Location, you should definitely look at opening up your location targeting, depending again on your delivery restrictions. And placement, there really is no need unless there is a reason for brand safety. Frequency caps. So This is another, I suppose, hot topic. I know a lot of agencies and advertisers love talking about frequency caps and figuring out what the best frequency cap is. Ultimately, we would always say around 5 to 7 per ad group per day. But if you think about it, this is really only valid for other display targetings like, keyword contextual targeting. For remarketing, it is different, especially if you're using conversion optimizer. We don't need to set a manual frequency cap because the conversion optimizer will do all of the work for you. So it would look at many different signals, like when the last time the user was in the website, how many times did the user visit the website, what's the likelihood the user will convert and click. So depending on all of these signals, the system will decide. So for person A, I want to show the ad 5 times, but for person B, it makes sense to show the ad 10 plus times. So again, you need to trust the capabilities of the algorithm in manually optimizing for those signals. Because again, if you think about it, it would be near impossible for you to manually optimize those signals. Okay, so ultimately frequency cap, because rest assured you are targeting that user, and if you have our automated bid strategies, that should be taken care of. Now, I've talked a lot now about tools that are directly built into or around remarketing. Now I'm going to talk about a mid-funnel strategy. This actually helps performance on remarketing too. Remarketing is obviously focused on past visitors, right? But you need to feed that funnel too and ensure you get new site visitors to the website. So not just any site visitors, you do want to look for more qualified users that are more likely to convert and perform best in your site. And this is where our mid-funnel audience products come into play. So the two in particular that I'm going to look at are similar audiences and auto targeting. So I hope a lot of you guys are familiar with these two products already, but let me elaborate a little bit further. So if we look at similar audiences, for each remarketing list you have in your shared library, our system will automatically create a similar audience list of that specific remarketing list. It will do so based on a lot of different signals, so such as what websites did the user visit before, what ads have they clicked on, and basically these traits and characteristics are very similar to those in your remarketing list. So for example, if you have an all visitors similar audience list, then it could mean that that user has been to the homepage of one of your competitors before. Okay, so think about that. You're automatically expanding your remarketing volume with similar audiences, knowing confidently that they display a lot of the similar traits to your remarketing list. So if you target all converters, ultimately, that's going to be the best list for performance and ROI. What I would suggest though, when you are creating or you want to use similar audiences, create a separate campaign, because this means you've got more control over which audience you would like to target. Perhaps you might want to tailor the creative, but also you really should be bidding and investing differently to new users rather than your returning users. So now on to auto targeting. Okay, so many of you may not be familiar with this, but hopefully a lot of agencies are already using this. So based on your remarketing list, we expand only to audiences with a significantly high probability of conversion. Okay, so similar audiences, they're similar characteristics and traits to your remarketing list, whereas with auto targeting, yes, they're similar, but they have a significantly high probability of conversion. So with auto targeting, you do just need to tick the box in the targeting settings and this will start expanding automatically, or a lot of times it's already set up by default when you create a new remarketing campaign. I do see the best performance when you use Conversion Optimizer, but if you are using ECPC, you will get greater volume, but it might take the system a little bit longer to identify the conversion trends. So ultimately, the difference between the two is dependent really on whether you want more or less control. So if you think of similar audiences, this is best for advertisers looking for added volume and have some flexibility in their performance targets. Whereas auto targeting, I suppose it's better for advertisers who want performance more closely aligned to their remarketing campaigns. Next, we've got in-market audiences. Okay, so hopefully a lot of you guys are already familiar with these and using these throughout your various campaigns. So this is really all about driving consideration among those people who are already searching or perhaps planning to buy the products that you offer. Okay, so what's different here and what's good about in-market audiences, it really separates interest from intent. Okay, so how does it do that? It's going to look at the various websites that a user is on. Okay, so if I show that I'm always on, let's say, price comparison websites, review websites, and I've been to certain websites a lot of times, more than others, then it's going to define that I have intent to buy something rather than interest. And that makes your audiences a lot more qualified. All right, so if you think about it, it's a mid-funnel targeting strategy that will complement, I suppose, your lower funnel remarketing. Best practices, again, a separate campaign I would advise, and try and always target the in-market segments that are more relevant to your business. A great tip here is, and it'll be launched soon, is to look, I suppose, at your remarketing lists, look at all convergers, and see what in-market segments they are exhibited in most. And lastly, for in-market audiences, don't add any additional targeting. So don't combine gender or remarketing with in-market audiences, because you really will limit your reach. So hopefully that makes sense. Now we've come to the end, so we went through those 10 steps pretty quick. So here's a recap what I've just discussed. A couple of key takeaways that hopefully you will remember and that you'll put into practice. Tag your entire site. Tag your mobile site. Perhaps use a tag management system. You want to target all your site visitors and a few other key segments. Ultimately, where you have the conversions, use Conversion Optimizer, because this really will get the best value from each of those segments. Next, if you're just on static remarketing, start using dynamic remarketing, because this will help you leverage the insights on which products and services your audience is interested in and show the most relevant ad. Lastly, what you can do is remove targeting restrictions for best performance, and don't forget to feed the mid-funnel for even better remarketing volume, because you want to make sure that you're continuing to get new website visitors, and then as a knock-on effect, they'll go into your remarketing list. All right, so what you will do, you'll find these best practices in our detailed guide and checklist. So you can simply download these when you go onto the support center with Google, and you'll be able to find these. All right, so again, these are 10 simple steps. They're pretty basic, but they're very, very essential that you do follow to get the most out of your marketing campaigns. All right, so thanks to those who have tuned in today. Hopefully that was useful for you. Thanks to anyone who's put a question, and I will get back to that in due course. I really enjoyed this. Hopefully you will tune in to the next one, and thanks so much for your attention. See you guys.